The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get things started today. So I thank you guys for joining us again for our Acumatica versus QuickBooks webinar. Today we're going to be talking about sales orders. And I'll give everybody a couple seconds to get logged in here. If I can get a couple people to tell me, hey, how are you in the chat screen or in the questions screen, raise your hand, something just to let me know you can hear me. We're coming through loud and clear. You can see my screen. It's always super helpful. Maybe where you're calling in from. It's awesome to see that. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. I like to start on time. I ran right up against it last week, although this week's going to be a little different because well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So just as a reminder, so we're going to be talking about Acumatica versus QuickBooks today. I'm Marjorie Adams. I am the CEO of Fourlane. Fourlane has been a consulting firm working in the software implementation space, conversion implementation space now for 12 years. Started during the last downturn in the economy, and of course, everybody's trying to figure out what's going on right now. So definitely doing well through all of this as people are wanting to make some changes to their systems. So things that make Fourlane unique. So we are the #1 QuickBooks solution provider. We've been doing QuickBooks since the beginning. We've been the top solution provider since 2010. So long reigning over here. What sets us apart with that, of course, is that we do QuickBooks and ERP. So that's also something that is unique out there. There's not a lot of people that bridge that gap. And so we are one of those firms. We know both extremely well. We are also experts in accounting and systems. So not only do we know how to set your system up, we also know how to talk about, what data you should be looking at to make decisions in your business. And then, of course, we're project managers for change management, right? So when we're coming in, we're usually making changes somewhere with the end goal always to get good data. So our proven process, we have a unique process that we bring our customers on board with. I'm assuming a lot of our customers are on the phone too, who have gone through this process before. So of course we have Discover. We have a deep dive on our discovery process that we go through. We right fit because we're not unique to just one product that we represent. We have the ability to right fit our customers in the correct product that is right for them for the next 5 years, we always talk about. Inform, of course, we want everybody to feel comfortable in what it's going to take to get us to that end goal, implement that vision, and then, of course, endless execution. You cannot set it and forget it in today's world. Technology changes constantly, so there is constant review and updating improvement options, right? So we want to stay focused on that. Our formula for success here at Fourlane. So everything we do focuses on getting data to make decisions. And these are some of the different services that we offer to help people to get to that data. We don't do tax, right? Tax is like a whole different animal. We do, how am I going to run my business? How, especially in today's world, what do I need to do? Where can I pivot to make sure that I'm going to be successful and ride out what's happening in the world right now. So data is how we get to that. And so we want to make sure that you have data in the right places to make those decisions. All right, so we're going to dive in products. One thing I just wanted to mention real quick, we do have an email series starting up, so keep an eye out for that. Email series is meant to be daily quick tips on business, on sales, on marketing, on software usage. So there's going to be a tips email series coming out where it talks about a solution, right? What's the takeaway? It talks about a story. So one of the things that Fourlane has that is very powerful is we have a lot of clients. And so we have a lot of stories. Of course, we're not going to be talking specific clients, but people go through this and all these different things. And it's really nice to know, what I've found over the years is it's nice to know that you're not alone, that other people are going through this. It's also nice to know that maybe you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, right? So having some of that collaboration between businesses. So anyway, keep an eye out for that coming out soon. Okay, let's dive in to our webinar here. So we are going to be going through sales orders. And in the sales order process, we're going to be talking about 2 products. So QuickBooks Enterprise, which is a desktop product, of course, that you can have it accessible in a remote desktop, so in the cloud. We're not going to be talking about QBO today because QuickBooks Online doesn't have sales orders. So that's not helpful for what our discussion is today. Otherwise, I'd be showing you what is happening in QBO. Now that might change, like, next week, the week after, who knows? You never know, because QBO is quickly advancing forward, but currently they do not have this concept of a sales order in product. Okay, somebody asked if there's a way to get a recording of this webinar. We will have these webinars posted on our website. So Fourlane.com under events, you'll see prior webinars that we've done. Also on our YouTube channel, there's not a lot out there about QuickBooks and Acumatica together, so we're going to start to get that word out there. Okay, so what is a sales order? So I like to look at it here on the QuickBooks workflow, right? A sales order is not an estimate. An estimate is a quote. A sales order is usually meant for the step between a quote and an invoice, right? That's kind of what we talk about in workflow. It also, in QuickBooks and in Acumatica and most other products, holds a crucial part in inventory management, because although it is a non-posting transaction, right, it does not affect your books. It does not affect your profit and loss, your balance sheet. Although it's a non-posting transaction, it does drive demand for product. Okay, so if something is an inventory part or an assembly item and you put it on a sales order, then it will drive demand for that product. So let's talk about this. So on a sales order in QuickBooks, right, we're going to be comparing QuickBooks to Acumatica. On a sales order in QuickBooks, of course, we have, previous, next, find, delete, create a copy. So we have a lot of clients that, they have standard templatized type of things that they replicate orders with different customers. So they create a copy of the orders and then make the few modifications for that unique client. You can memorize sales orders, right? So if a customer says, send me an order of 1,000 every week for the next 24 months, so that you can have it automatically post. We can mark it as closed, obviously, if the sales order is not going to be completed. We have print, email, print later, attached documents. It's pretty standard stuff. And then, of course, what can we do from a sales order? Create an invoice, create a purchase order. Okay. We have our customer job field along the top, class, which will allow us to grab things into a different department possibly, or a different way to splice your revenues, or class can be used for so many different things. One thing too we have in this file is it shows on the sales order here what their price level is, okay, but it's very small and you can see it's kind of cut off. It's a small amount of space that we have that, but we'll see this down below as well. So date, sales order number, who's it coming from, who to, sales rep. We can have other fields that we add onto QuickBooks Enterprise. So as an example, I have a different template that I set up that has a status field, right? So sales orders is, we don't really have like a, waiting for approval, sent to vendor. So we don't have we have pick, pack, ship as statuses potentially in our sales order process, but we don't have anything having to do with purchasing in there, okay? Also, since I'm talking about purchasing, one of the things that QuickBooks does not do is it does not tie a sales order to the purchase order. There's not a link in the system between the two things. So we have created for our customers a QuickBooks Advanced Reporting report that we can tie based on the customer job items to purchase orders. But of course, it's not a direct link in the system, so it's always important to know. Coming down below here, so again, class, you can have that at the line level. You don't have to have it just at the header level. This class field in the ERP space is generally going to be like a department or a sub-account code, but QuickBooks calls it class. And then we have your item. So once we add an inventory part in QuickBooks to a sales order, we can come in here, have additional fields that show up. But we have this graph that shows us how many are on hand, how many are on sales orders, how many are reserved for assemblies, how many are on purchase orders, quantity available. We can see details, right? So if I had any on purchase orders, or I have some on builds, I can drill down to see what transactions are utilizing this item. It does not actually hold these inventory parts aside, right? So if I came in here and I put in on my sales order 500, it's going to give me a warning potentially that, hey, you don't have that many quantity available to sell, but I can grab them. I can make this sales order win over those bombs if I wanted to. Okay, so rate, amount, you know, all pretty standard stuff there. Now notice on QuickBooks we do have some grayed out fields. So these grayed out fields do have to do with the advanced inventory process that I have turned on, which is the sales order fulfillment worksheet. And it basically picks up the status, again, pick, pack, shipped. So status at the line level, not just at the header level, and then fulfilled quantities. I cannot click into these fields, okay, because they're based on an activity from another transaction. All right. Now, when I look at QuickBooks, there is not a transactional step between sales order and invoice. Okay. There's not a transactional step like a shipment. So in ERP space, there's usually a transaction step here called shipment, which is actually the relief of inventory. At the invoice in QuickBooks, it relieves inventory, updates cost of goods sold, updates accounts receivable, and updates sales. All of that happens on the invoice in QuickBooks. There's no go-between. In ERP systems, generally, the shipment ticket, right, relieves inventory, updates cost of goods sold, and then the invoice handles the sales portion. Okay. All right. So that is the sales order process in QuickBooks. I'm going to switch on over into Acumatica, but before I do that, I'm going to launch a quick poll to see which sales process documents you all use, and that you can select multiple. We want to go ahead and check off which ones we use in our own. If you use estimates in your system, do you use sales orders or shipments? Do you use invoices? Do you have cash sales only? Maybe all of the above. Okay, we'll give it a couple seconds here as I flip my screen over. Again, if you guys have any questions, be sure to put those questions in the questions panel there. I will try to get to them along the way. I will also hang on towards the end of this to make sure I answer as many questions as possible if needed. Okay, so it seems like we're still getting a couple answers in there, so thank you for that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close that poll and share so you can see what everybody else is doing in their own workflows. So it looks like some people use estimates and quotes, some people don't. Quite a few use sales orders and shipments. Lots using invoices and cash sales, so kind of a carryover there. I like it. Okay, so let's hop on into Acumatica now. Okay, so this is Acumatica. If you haven't looked at we did last week, we did a customers, right? Customer setup, how to set up customers in Acumatica versus QuickBooks Online. So when you're in Acumatica, it is a web-based product, meaning that it is, you know, web services enabled. You access it through a web browser. You have multiple choices for where your file can be hosted. This is something that one of the main reasons why we chose Acumatica as the ERP product to represent. You can have it hosted on the AWS cloud server, so it's a SaaS edition. You can have it hosted on your own cloud server provider, right? So that's what we have now through Blue Diamond Cloud. You can also, or Skyline, that's what we call it internally, if you guys ever have heard us talk about that. And then we can also have it hosted locally on our own computers if we want to, right? So it makes it unique. So from the sales order stage, so I have a sales order menu item down the side here, okay? So once I click on the menu item, you can see all of the things that I can do related to sales orders. So in QuickBooks, we had some pretty simple things, right? We had create an invoice, create a purchase order. There are lots of things that you can do here related to sales orders. You can also see the different transaction types that are related. So we have sales order, obviously. We have invoices. We have shipments. So they do have that shipment step. And then, of course, we still have pick, pack, and ship options here. When I click into my sales order screen, this is also something in QuickBooks, when you click into your customer center, right, you have your transactions, and you can filter your transactions by sales orders and come over here and customize columns, right click and customize columns and say, like, I only want to see open sales orders for some certain date range. Okay. This view is tied to the user, but you only have one view, right? When you are in Acumatica, you can set up different filters for your views, and you can create multiple tabs if you want to have multiple views. So like my sales orders, maybe if I'm a sales rep, right? And then I have my team sales orders maybe, or maybe I have all sales orders that are on back order, those kinds of things. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the open sales orders that we have here. So when I click through, similar to QuickBooks, right? So if I wanted to, I could double click and drill down, open up the sales order that I am looking at. So the drill around feature is the same in Acumatica as in QuickBooks. So up top, so of course I have, save, previous, next. I have the add new record. I have the templatize, so I can copy, same as what QuickBooks has here, previous, next. We have quick process, which allows us to save it quickly and process it quickly. So going through the shipping process more faster. Also actions. So these are all the different actions that we have tied to the sales order. So we can create a shipment, we can create a receipt, open an order, reopen an order, copy the order, right, which we have over there, email. We can release the customer from credit hold. Okay. We can prepare an invoice, create purchase order. The purchase orders are directly linked to the sales order. We can create a transfer order, cancel the order, place it on back order. So this is an actual step in the process. With QuickBooks, when you place things on back order, it just leaves the existing sales order open, and whatever wasn't shipped on the original order is automatically placed on back order technically. So when people come into me in QuickBooks and say, I need to know what's on back order, it's whatever's on an open sales order that is not shipped. It's not like an actual back order status on the line. You can recalculate prices based on, if we have any kind of discount settings or anything like that. You have approvals and rejections, so we can have approvals. Maybe all sales orders going out above $10,000 need approval or whatever it is. We can set up approvals in there, and then recalculate tax on it as well. Of course, for reports tied in here, so we can print sales orders. We have pro forma reports in there. Across the top, we have notes. I didn't mention this in QuickBooks. You do have notes on the side. I don't know what this big white space is, by the way, but it's been there for a little bit. It's a UI thing that they need to update. So I have customer notes at the whole, but I also have transaction notes. A lot of people don't know about that. They can't do anything. You can't report on them, but they're just here. In Acumatica, you can add notes as well. There's our internal notes that can be added on top of the transaction. We have activities, of course, so you can tie activities to this particular sales order, like to-dos, reach out to the customer to this, tell the customer or get approval from the customer for the next one, or whatever it is, right? We can have events scheduled with the customer, so you can set up activities. So it's kind of like a CRM light type thing, task tracking. We can attach files, just like we can. You can attach files at the line level or at the header level. That came up on a demo yesterday. You can also set up notifications. We talked about this. Notifications would be something along the lines of, tell me if anything ships, right? Or automatically email the customer if anything ships. Automatically email the customer if anything goes on back order, right? So we have a preset notification in here, back order created, that if I select this, and it'll show me what notification I have set up. So I'm saying that I have, dear purchasing manager, this document, meaning it would take me to the sales order, has been placed on back order, right? And it has what are the conditions, so status changes to back order. and then any fields, right? And who's it going to go to? So there's like what fields do we care about in here? So anyway, that notifications happening automatically can be something that we have set up across the board, or we can do it on a per transaction basis. And of course, customization. So coming along, the document details down below here. So sales order type, right? We have sales order, but we can actually set up different order types. So if you didn't, because right, in QuickBooks I had mentioned before that estimate does not drive demand for product necessarily. In Acumatica, you can drive demand for product based on it being on a sales order, and then also based on it being allocated, right? Like not available to be taken onto another order. So there's two levels. So you could technically do multiple order types in here, quote, right? And then copy the quote and convert it over to being a sales order. I mean, so you don't have to go through and have other transaction types if you don't need to. It's just an idea. But so you can see here some of the order types that we have set up in my demo file. So we have got quotes, we've got RMAs, we've got return orders, we've got cash sales that are going to be converted to a cash sale. So you can have multiple tickets, transfers, right? So one location needing the other location to ship some stuff out, they'll be grabbing it in there. Okay, we can have sales orders marked on hold. So again, it's another status. We have actual statuses, right? So you can say what the, if it's open, if it's on back order, if it's, once I get into the order, it'll give me more here. But you can have the different statuses there that are system generated based on events. Dates, requested on date, customer order number, external reference number. So there's just a ton of fields. Along the lines down below here, one of the things, so let me go ahead and add an inventory part. So you can pull from different branches, you can pull from different warehouses as well. So let me just pick up a part here. One of the things that I like to point out along the way here, right, is that you can have dates, like when is it required to ship on by, right? Or if it doesn't ship by this date, then don't ship it. So things like that can be added in here. But I'm just going to go along the line. So of course, branch, what branch are we pulling from? Inventory, what warehouse? You can have default warehouses. In QuickBooks, you have to choose the warehouse. Unit of measures, of course, we have that. Quantity on shipments already, so that would be showing up here. We can assign items to a task level on a project. So that would be something that you can do in QBO possibly, but you can't do in Enterprise really. Discounts, right? Manual discounts, overrides, extended pricing. When they requested it on, when do we need to ship it on? What shipping rules are we setting up for this line on this sales order? So there can be multiple ship rules. Also multiple, like when do we need to ship these on? Overship thresholds, undership thresholds. Again, we can set this up. So it's just a lot more data, right? Mark for PO because we need to create a PO for this. Okay, who's the salesperson at the line level? And is it commissionable at the line level? Back here, so in Acumatica, of course, user-friendly wise, it has a very simple way to add additional fields. So you can see there still are additional columns that we could add in. So discount codes. Is this a free item, right? We can track free items. What order do we want these to show up in? That's one that we get in QuickBooks all the time, right? Putting it back in its original order. We have a workaround for that, but it's not really. You can add in those sub-account numbers. We can have an item class, but we can add in sub-account numbers, which would be similar to like a QuickBooks class, except for you can have multiple segments. So lots of information at the line item. You can do allocations, so that would say like these two or however many I'm ordering are not available to sell or use anywhere else. You can add invoices, you can add items, stock items, right? Pull from stock. You can have a PO link. We can do the inventory summary, so similar to what we saw in QuickBooks, right? So give me a quick summary on this particular inventory part that I have selected. What has it got going on? Okay, how many are available, available for shipment, available for issue, not available? I mean, there are a ton more fields. And this can be overwhelming when you start to first look at this. But of course, what I just like to make people aware of is that it's possible. They're like, oh, they wake up in the middle of the night. I wonder if I could do this with my inventory. Well, there are a lot more things that are possible out there. Probably some of the things that you've dreamt up are built into a product like this. So tax details, of course, we would have what are the sales tax rates if there's information around that. Commission details, so we saw the commissions at the line level, but what would that turn out to be? Financial settings, so these are pretty standard. The thing that's nice to note here is that you can have different financial settings on the transaction, right, that don't go up to the account level per se. Okay. You can have which branch is this tied to as a default again, but you can override it. You can also have an owner. So this is something that I like a lot on the transaction level. So you can have an owner who's responsible for this transaction. Okay. Lots of different fields there. Payment settings. Okay, so how are we going to take payment? Is there a pre-authorization amount? You know, is there unpaid balance? Card information that we're going to be taking payment on. That's saved at the transaction level, not necessarily at the account level. Shipping settings. So shipping settings are different, right? You can have different contact information for shipping than you do for billing, which is a big deal. What are the shipping rules, right? So back order allowed, so you set these up ahead of time. Ship only completed orders, right? So this will help when we're doing fulfillment. This will help you decide which ones can be shipped, because if they allow for back order, right? Or cancel remainder if we're short shipping. So set that up ahead of time. Cancel by date. So if we don't ship by this date, it needs to be stopped. How do they ship via, right? And then we can also link into pull shipping information in, package information, and also shipping costs. Discount information. So this would be an across the board, not a per line item discount possibly. So we can have discount codes set up. Shipments. So this is that go-between. So are there any shipments tied to this particular document? And you would see the list of shipments tied to it here. This is also a big deal too, payments. So you can actually link payments to sales orders so that when you go ahead and create the invoice, the payment is already happening. In QuickBooks, you can do that, but it runs it as a negative AR, right? So it works. And then we have a totals, right? Overview, freight information, all sorts of totals in here. So the difference between the two, there are a lot of similarities. I always say it's fascinating to me how much QuickBooks does do, but there are things that just a couple steps up, right? That a couple extra fields, there's quite a few extra fields, but a few extra bits that you can do in a system like an Acumatica. So I hope you guys were able to take away some information from today. I am going to turn over to questions. Let's see what we got here. So we have several. Direct link between sales orders and purchase orders. Can you discuss the potential challenges with the lack of a direct link? So, so in QuickBooks, we talked about how you don't have a link between sales orders and purchase orders. And in Acumatica, you do. So the potential issue there is, right, so you can come in QuickBooks and do an inventory stock status by item report. It's 11, so if you guys need to hop off, make sure that you're on time, but I'm just going to keep answering these questions real quick. So you have a stock status by item report where we can come in and say, what do we need to order for all orders that are outstanding out there, right? So I can tell what I need to create a purchase orders for. And this would be taking it for all orders. Now, if I had a sales order in here and I wanted to know, did I order this product for this particular customer? Okay, I wouldn't be able to readily see that. So we have reports like we have, let me get to jobs. We have committed cost by job report. So it'll tell me I do have purchases. I have purchase orders outstanding for the job, but it doesn't do it at the line level for this, right? So things that where customers of mine have needed this is, especially in construction, or especially when you're doing custom BOMs, so build assemblies, but they're custom products all the time, then they want to be able to pull up an account or a job, and they want to be able to say, have I ordered all products for this job? And so in QuickBooks, you wouldn't readily be able to see that. You'd have to go through a report to see that. Okay. In Acumatica, you could go into purchases and see, right, because I have it PO linked or I have it marked for PO, you'd be able to see which ones you need to order by job. And you can also filter down by job which ones you need to order. Wish I could make this, oh, there, I can make it bigger. There we go. Do the entered notes show up automatically for specific customers? Celeste, I'm not sure what you mean by that. These notes up here would be tied to the transaction. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. Okay. When you set up activities in Acumatica, the activities populate in the CRM section. So you don't have to, so yes, if you had CRM, yes, but you don't have to use the CRM section to have these activities used. Where they would show up as the user is basically you have my tasks. So it's under the time and expenses tab, but what tasks do I need to do? And you would see, you know, I need to follow up on this email. I need to follow up on the sales order, whatever it is. And then also which events do you have coming up? And of course, we can integrate to Outlook as well. And then obviously, if you're an approver, you would see which approvals you have coming up. So this is where you would see my tasks. On the home screen, right, if you wanted to, on your dashboard, you could have a place on the home screen that said, like, what are my tasks today? Okay. Or just maybe populate this. Is there a way to set default dates on shipping? Can it always be required to ship within 2 business days instead of having to enter a date every time with a shipping date requirement? Yes, so you can set that up in the, so you have defaults, right? So when we go back into the sales order, you have defaults that you have set up at the customer. Every customer you create, every item you create, you can set up defaults to pre-fill in, yes. And then you can define what those mean, right? So you say shipping method is within 2 days or whatever you said here, right? All shipping is within 2 days. That could be a default, and then you can associate that at the customer level and have it show up as a default every time you set up a customer. So therefore, a default at the line. So yes, the answer is yes. That's just one way. There's probably other ways to do that. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have from you guys today. Anybody else got last minute some things? All right. So next month we are going to be going into some more. I think we're doing vendors and purchase orders next month to kind of understand the differences between the two. Again, the overall goal is just awareness. Let's just bring some awareness of what's out there, what's possible in systems outside of the QuickBooks space. Hope everybody took a little bit away from this and have a great rest of your week. Thanks, guys.